Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bobby and Biddy Show. I'm Bobby, alongside me, as always, is my co-host McBiddy, and today we'll be discussing and reviewing Borderlands. There are time codes below should you wish to use them. Let's crack on with the show. I'm going to give you the rundown straight off the bat. Borderlands is a science fiction action comedy film, debatable, based on the video game series developed by Gearbox Software, a game I've never played. Have you ever played it, Beardy? I imagine you have.
I've played bits of 2 and most of 3.
There we go. He's the expert. Co-written and directed by Eli Roth. Screenplay by Craig Mazin, although Mazin removed his name from the project and was replaced by Joe Crombie. Interesting. It stars Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Ariana Greenblatt, Florian Munteanu, and Jamie Lee Curtis and Edgar Ramirez. The release date was the 9th of June this year. That's 2024 if you're from the past or future. The runtime is 142 minutes. It's an hour and 42 minutes. And the budget is somewhere between 110 and 120 million. It's definitely had lots of advertising budget, though, because I've seen it everywhere. The worldwide box office, as of 10 minutes ago, is $10 million. Just to clarify, that is American and not Australian.
Does it matter?
Oh, Biddy, this is a film.
It is.
And it's not doing well, and I have various opinions on that. But first of all, what's it all about? Give me a bit. As you're the expert on Borderlands, give me the gist, and for any viewers who haven't seen or played it as well.
Yeah. So obviously, from my years of lore study of Borderlands, from my understanding, it's loosely based on the Borderlands series of games, where obviously there's say it's based in the future, sci-fi. There is a forerunner society that hid their secrets, technologies. People are trying to find it. This has been going on for a long time, and this ragtag group come together for whatever reasons and try to find it for good reasons. And it's all the hilarity on the way. It's very much we need to find it so others don't, and they learn many things about themselves and each other along the way. It's very heart. No, it's not heartwarming at all. But that's pretty much the story. They refer back to the games quite a lot. Characters are based on it. Things like one of the main characters, one of the psychos, uses phrases from the games quite a lot, which I quite liked. But yeah, loosely based on the game, made a film out of it. It is a film.
It is a film. Shall I do my big joke, my big original joke? Shall I do it? Drum roll, please.
Yeah, of course, please.
Borderlands, more like boring lands.
You could have said Borderlands.
I could have done. There's so many versions. It's like you name a film something where you can do too many jokes, and yeah, it's almost like you're dooming yourself to create bad reviews.
So. As I say, before we go on, like we've had this before in previous podcasts, where you know what, I didn't hate it. Like it was. I'm not rushing back to see it like I did with Deadpool and Wolverine. But you know what, it's going to get a lot of hate. It was a film, and I didn't dislike my time there, but it's not going to draw me back very. I feel like you're going to give it a much harsher review than I will.
No, it kind of just exists. It's so. Yeah. Blandly generic, and there's nothing to get your teeth into at all. And I don't know if you're the biggest fan of Borderlands in the world, if you're going to be more in on it, or if you're like me, who's just aware it exists and is going because you're hoping it looks better than the trailers did. My 2-second review of this film would be the best bits in the movie are in the trailer, and the trailer isn't that good.
No, I completely agree. And can I refer back to what you just said? Like, if you're a Borderlands fan, I'd be interested to find out what you think. So, I watched the World of Warcraft film without having played the game, and you know what? I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. But apparently, people who play the game hate it. The lore is off. Nothing makes sense. It's not great. In the same way, I love Silent Hill. The Silent Hill films are terrible, objectively terrible. I liked the Halo games. The Halo series is objectively terrible. I feel like for people who've played the games and love it, they're going to hate this, but anyone else, it's a passable.
Yeah, I feel like this is similar to my experience with Uncharted. Didn't play the games, knew very little about it, didn't really mind, as not a fan, that they just cast little Tommy Holland to play little Tommy Holland and Mark Wahlberg to play Mark Wahlberg. Although it's obvious that there should be more depth to both of the characters they're playing, and they're clearly just playing their usual selves. So bigger fans of Uncharted like yourself, I know, would have more of a problem.
Well, I grew into the characters for there. Like, they weren't perfect, but I understand why they chose it. It kind of worked. It wasn't perfect, but I think some of the perfect actors for that have kind of aged out. I don't know if that's the case for this. Obviously, like, what's her name? She was older than expected.
Kate, okay, so I feel like we could dissect where this movie goes wrong a little bit. And this is one of my main points. Lilith, I did a bit of research. Lilith is the character played by Cate Blanchett. In the first game, she is a 22-year-old. Cate Blanchett is 55. And I know you've got senior citizens, male action figures. Tom Cruise is older. Liam Neeson was doing it for decades with his I'm taken on a plane, on a bus, on a boat franchise sort of thing. So I don't want to sound like I'm just being ageist and sexist. But the narrative story that Lilith, played by Cate Blanchett, is going through is still almost the narrative of like a younger woman who's like been forced to her hand and has, joined some bounty hunters and forced to make her way in the world. And there's like flashbacks, and the flashbacks feel like they took decades ago. Because young Lilith is like a 10-year-old or whatever, and Mum's like 30, and it's like, I don't know, it just creates this weird dynamic straight away, and it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't, it immediately puts you on the back foot, essentially.
Yeah, I get what you mean. So there's two things I do want to address. I firstly think that Cate Blanchett did great in the role. Like, I think that maybe she is too old for the role, but she did great in the role. I think that I'll go into other things I don't like about it, but the parts that she did do, I did enjoy. I don't think her age was an issue, other than the fact it's not story correct. However, they do address the fact that obviously last time she was there was when she was 8, and she's not been there for 36 years, so she would be 44. They do address that in the storyline. I don't know if that makes it right.
That. It's saying it and it feeling right.
Yeah.
Doesn't. Yeah. I genuinely think if it was casted to a younger, it would have made sense and worked more with the game that people have watched and played.
Yeah.
It felt, again, as someone who's never played the series, going into it, it felt a little off with the haircut and the styling and things like that. Another problem I have is I actually find the action to be rather dull throughout the film. There's no real weight to anything. There's a lot of them just kind of standing there going pew, pew, pew. But then it feels like they were told, like, don't worry, we'll make it look cool in post, and then they just didn't really. There's like the guns, there's nothing there. Some of the CGI is atrocious by today's standards. Especially when they're on like the hover bikes, when the Red Legion or whatever they're called, like comments, and they're flying over, and there's loads of close-ups. It's like bad. It's like the sort of thing you'd expect to see a while ago.
It's not spoilers because it's in the trailer, but when Lilith first meets Tina, obviously we see her in the trailer, so we know this is happening. The calamity that ensues from that, when they're kind of sliding down some rubble, that CGI was just not good. I can't give it any credit. Some of the stuff they did was okay. I quite liked it. Like, some of the fire effect later on wasn't bad. That was inexcusable in my opinion. What was the budget again?
Somewhere between 110 to 120 allegedly. But
that's
a lot
quite
of
high.
That there's they do some sliding around and stuff, and it goes straight into the hover bike close-ups, and it's just it's rough. It's ropey dopey. While I'm just slagging it off, I found the comedy to be mostly miss as well. I counted. It was easy to count. I counted how many times my medium busy screening was. It wasn't as packed as the screening of It Ends With Us was for me, but pretty busy. Friday night showing. 0 audible laughs in the entire movie from the audience that I was in.
again, I think it's a stark difference after the week beforehand we'd watched Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, a lot of laughs in that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the laughs are carried by Jack Black, Claptrap, in this. His lines are better written. Everyone else's don't hit as well. They don't land.
He's definitely the main comedic relief. He's the main comedy. He's the main comedic relief character. But honestly, I found most of that just like whatever. He has a fun little gimmick of wanting certain characters to die, and he tries to celebrate their demises, which haven't quite happened yet. Then he has to backtrack. That's fine. If you don't mind me just continuing a rant, I'll just continue.
Do your rant. I have things, but you do you.
I think the characters are paper thin. There's no one to latch onto or care about in this film. Protagonist or antagonist. The villain is forgetful. There's nothing to root 100%. Against. There's no one to root for. Just everything is so just whatever and generic. It's like just
And so I agree. I think that the antagonist for me was the worst. Like, he doesn't seem all that big bad. He doesn't have any charisma. Like, he's the bad guy. Please believe us. Just let make the story happen.
I didn't mind his introduction. He has an interesting introduction in a bar. He makes his henchmen wear like a little neck thing that projects his face onto them, so he can talk while in their bodies, kind of thing. I thought that was quite. But yeah, the rest of it, he's kind of just like, I'm the bad guy. Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, again, it's not a spoiler because we don't say too much, but the big twist. What, you saw it about for 2 minutes in? Really? It was so telegraphed. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
I think just going back to paper thin characters, Roland played by Kevin Hart. There's a funny little throw line addressing the fact that he's smaller than video games. Essentially, Tiny Tina says, "What they sent his smallest warrior or whatever." Like, yeah, Kevin Hart's small. I think Kevin Hart's probably the best bit of this movie for me personally. But but he's just doing Kevin Hart. He's just if you've seen Jumanji or any other Kevin Hart film, he's just Kevin Hart. But this time he's holding a gun, going, "I hope they make this look cool in post." Yeah, so his backstory is briefly touched on. He's betrayed his army folk, maybe, but it's barely. It's the most a thing is in this movie, and it's still barely a thing. It's like reference more than anything else. But
they tried to put a bit of storyline on Tina, but again, it doesn't. You don't feel for her when things potentially get bad later on.
Is that because she gets pee in her mouth because she leaves the window down, and you're like, well, you're an idiot. This is on you now. Okay. Let's rolling back to like casting and stuff. You said you didn't.
Sure.
Blanchett. I do think she's miscast in the role. It's not the worst.
I think what she did wasn't bad with the role. I do think she wasn't right for the role, but I think as she had it, she did okay with it.
Yeah, I feel like that's a fair assessment. She does the best in a miscast role. Yeah. It's not the worst miscasting I've ever seen. That goes to another sci-fi action adventure, Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. Have you ever seen that?
I definitely have.
Yeah, Dane DeHaan and Cara Delevingne, and they're meant to be a cool action couple. And not only does the action not work, they don't work as action heroes. They're also meant to be in a cool romance together, but it feels like you're watching brother and sister. It's weird.
Yes, it does.
So just we're not at that levels of bad and awkward and derailing the film.
Yeah.
Krieg, played by Florian Munteanu, I'm definitely butchering the name as always, has literally nothing to do. I did recognize that he was 100% just saying phrases from the video game. Which I went and checked to see if he actually had just been voiced by the guy from the video game, and it looks like it's him. So not as in Florian's do. And I do think Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina is pretty good, but doesn't have all. So and Jamie Lee Curtis is fine as well. She's good. Yeah, they're all fine, but in a movie that's just blah, essentially, it doesn't.
This kind of falls into the trap of game to movie, game to TV. Like, you either do it brilliantly and you're heralded for doing it that way, or you miss the mark and you get roasted forever because it has a fan base, and the fan base want things to go right. Like Resident Evil have done it badly, Silent Hill done it badly. I said Halo, obviously. Sonic kind of got fixed before it happened, and even then it wasn't perfect. Like, there's so much, it's such a risk. Maybe just focus group it, go to the fans, say, what do you think of this? Oh shit, it's bad. We should fix it.
I think they did. I honestly feel like they did do that. Because it feels so safe and generic. It feels like they did kind of do that. Not necessarily with the video game fans, but just general mass market audiences.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of left with this, like, it's nothing to like get into and sink into, properly enjoy. It's kind of just there. It's not the worst experience of your life, but it is very forgettable and a bit dull, kind of, at the same time.
Yeah. I think, again, we're looking at what they did well, giving them some credit. As someone who hasn't played the games a lot, but I do remember parts, I think that Krieg, Tiny Tina, Moxie or Mad Moxie, the costuming was on point. It was correct to the game. It was really quite nicely done. It looks like they were well made. So it's nice to see that done right in such iconic roles like the Psycho Krieg. You have to get that right. Like, they were a big focus on the box art for number 2 and 3. Obviously, Mad Moxie was on 3 as well, so you do have to get that right. And I do think that landed, but it doesn't cover up gaping cracks in the issues.
Yeah. Have you got anything else to say that isn't spoilers? I've kind of got one spoiler thing I want to talk about really quickly, and then I'm kind of done, because that's my opinion of this film. I'm kind of done.
No, if I'm honest, I'm kind of on board with that. So let's go to spoilers. Let's do thumbs, and let's kind of spoil some things.
I'm gonna have to give it a thumbs down, but I kind of feel like it's a bit harsh. But I couldn't really recommend anybody to go and watch it, so thus it's thumbs down.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go opposite. I'm a bit maybe lighter, so I'm going to give it a thumbs up. But the caveat to that is, if you can find something else to watch that. If you have nothing else, it's fine. Go for it.
I should have asked the guy sitting directly behind me what he thought at the end of the film, because it turns out he was drinking a couple of tinnies the entire time. He took out 4 cans of beer, finished cans of beer. So maybe that's the best way to watch it. I don't know. Maybe he had a great time. Although, again, I refer you to the fact that 0 people laughed audibly. There's a couple of moments where you go, oh, okay, I'm a smirk. You get a smirk out of me, but there were no big laughs.
It's the film equivalent of when you kind of breathe out heavily instead of laughing.
Yeah.
It's that. It's just, okay.
I'm acknowledging. You've made me acknowledge that there's a moment, but I'm not gonna. It's not enough to actually trigger a full response. Okay, the one moment I wanted to talk about in spoilers that kind of annoyed me is when Kevin Hart, as Roland, has this big heroic moment where he has to stay behind to take on a tribe of a gazillion psychos. Probably, I didn't count, because everyone else is going up in the lift and he's had to fix the wiring stuff, and they're all charging at him. He throws a bomb, and you see the side-on shot down a corridor. It's a T-junction corridor. He's there, and they just swarm him off screen. Somehow he survives, despite being rugby tackled by, again, approximately 7 trillion of them. Luckily, he decides to do his surviving off screen, so that they didn't have to write an interesting or cool way for him to survive these impossible odds. And that annoyed me, because it just cuts back to him like 10 minutes later, like, well, I'm fine. Okay, cool. I won't care about anything then.
Again, 2 things on this. Firstly, think about the budget. Like, of course they didn't do it on screen because budget. But I will actually say I don't mind the impossible odds in this. So having played the games, there's a lot of points where the numbers don't make sense. You are swarmed, you do not have the ammo, nothing makes sense, and you survive. It's just the way it is. You survive. I think that one maybe was a bit weird. Like, that he should have thrown the bomb to blow up the grate so they fall into the acid. That would have made more sense to me. But in the times where, like, just before this, when they're fighting all the fire psychos, whatever they call the numbers don't make sense. They should have died. But that's kind of Borderlands. Like, it is one of those.
Yeah, I get that, and I somewhat respect it. But honestly, it's just like,
yeah,
couldn't show me him outsmarting them or trapping them in acid or anything like that, just like, nah, we'll do it.
Or,
we'll just cut back to it. I don't know, lazy.
If it's trying to be as funny as it's trying to be, maybe have him a throwaway line afterwards about, like, what I just did was amazing. A shame no one saw it.
Yeah,
that would be brilliant.
That would almost make me forgive it. And I reckon Kevin Hart
yes.
could pull that off, actually.
100% he could, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's such a two things. Like, obviously, we didn't see it because as the viewer, they haven't shown us it, but also no one else is around to see him survive. So it works storyline wise and fourth wall break. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I thought at the time, it's like, well, why wouldn't you?
That could have won me back over. I wouldn't be complaining about it right now. I'm done. That's my spoiler. That's the only thing I wanted to talk about. Anything for you?
I gotta say, I think the plot twist is telegraphed massively. I think it's too obvious. The final fight has no gravitas as well. The end of the antagonist has no gravitas.
Yeah, that kind of just ends, doesn't it? Like they're just in a valley. And they're like, oh, well, this is the end of this movie, I suppose.
Yeah, and even the final end where everyone's happy and they're like celebrating, and Tina's like, do the thing. Oh, I'll turn into fire and fly off now. And then it ends like, okay, well,
she does a regular Johnny Blaze.
It's just the for an empty film, it still left me hollow. I think that's the issue.
Oh,
that sounds really harsh for something I gave a thumbs up. But it's kind
I think you were generous.
I want to like it.
I think I was negative, but I think you were generous at the same time.
Yeah, it fits somewhere between where we were.
It's just so. There's just nothing about it. There's nothing to make you want to go and see it again, watch it again, experience it again.
In a time where there has been some great films come out recently, and this year it's been very hit and miss. There's been some bad films and some great films. It just is so middle of the road. At least the bad ones, you remember, oh my god, they were bad, and the good ones, fantastic. I want to see them again. This is okay, it happened.
Yeah,
I spent 2 hours there. Fine.
Oh dear, are we done?
I think we're done.
Brilliant. Well, Beardy, why don't you take us home?
Okay, well, thank you very much, watchers, listeners, and other senses, I guess. You can obviously, as you said, find us on Spotify, where you can give us a listen, and YouTube, you can see our pretty faces as we talk. Otherwise, you can find Bobby on Twitch as Bobby Android. Find him playing games, other things. There's some events coming up, which I won't look into. But go look at him. He's good. I still am doing nothing, so do not look for me again, please. I am potentially looking at doing Monday streams, though. That's the thing we will discuss. Exciting. I know. Once I know. Otherwise, watch the film if you want. Hopefully this helped you make an informed decision.
Don't. Go see Trap instead.
We'll see you. Well, yeah, I'll be seeing that tomorrow. So yeah, do that, and we'll talk about it soon. Thank you very much. We will talk to you and see you guys soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.